Who cares? Why is this so important? Why is this little ratty part of the world that's like just scraped out of useless desert fundamentally? Why in the world is everyone obsessed with it?
What's really going on between Israel and Palestine? Is this fight of Hamas justified in light of the narrative that Israelis have committed atrocious crime against the Palestinian people in Jerusalem and the West Bank? Why is this tiny part of the world creating such a commotion time and again? The serious complexities surrounding this issue is laid out by Jordan Peterson.
Well, one of them is that people lie all the time about exactly what's going on in Israel, and they're on one side or the other. You know, they lie because they're malevolent, because they want destruction, because they're jealous, because they're anti-Semitic, because they're anti-Islamic, because they're anti-Christian. Another problem is, well, all three religions make a group-oriented claim to rights to the territory, and then that raises a terrible specter, because it's the specter of group rights, right? Is that groups have the right to self-determination, and that groups can have a historical claim to a piece of geography. And of course, that spins us into a terrible conflict between the idea of group identity and the idea of individual rights, and we have no idea how to sort that out. And then the problem of group identity and historical claims is magnified by the problem of time frame, and this is a major psychological problem, man. It's like, well, you think about, say, the common complaint that the Western colonialists say we're responsible for the divisions of the Middle East. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. If you start history at 1917, after the Allies won the First World War and took down the Ottoman Empire, and in the aftermath of the collapse of the European monarchies, you could say, well, England and France had the upper hand and they arbitrarily divided up the Middle East, but you could just as easily say that, well, the damn empire had collapsed and they had to do something with it, and it wasn't obvious, and they gave some of it to the Arabs, who really didn't have any land to begin with, or not any independent land, that's for sure, because they were dominated by the Ottoman Empire, and they decided to give some of it to the Jews, and well, maybe that wasn't the world's best solution either way, but and then, if you stretch your historical imagination back several thousand years, well, then you can say, well, the Jews have a historical claim to Palestine, let's say, and to Jerusalem. But the problem is, well, why take that particular frame of history? You can take any frame of history you want, and then the conclusions that you draw from the facts that you observe differ substantially. And that's a big psychological problem, because it's not easy to determine what the appropriate time frame is to analyze the significance of historical events, and no one knows how to deal with that problem. And so at least we could say it's a problem, because it clearly is. And it's part of the reason, I think, why Palestine and the conflict there just never leaves the Western imagination. That's another major cognitive problem, a cognitive historical problem in some sense that we don't know how to solve. We don't know how to solve the problem of proxies. It could be that the Israelis and the Palestinians would actually like peace, but it doesn't matter, because they're surrounded by people who can use them to, especially the Palestinians in my estimation, to continue to agitate for their extracurricular political motives. And if they have to sacrifice the Palestinians to do it, well, so much the better. That solves more than one problem at the same time. That is another indication of precisely why the problem is so absurdly complicated.
It is true that the Israel and Palestine conflict is much more complicated than what is portrayed on mainstream media. The present crisis is deeply rooted in religious convictions over the Holy Land. For instance, for the Jews, the holy city of Jerusalem is synonymous with the Holy Temple and the Western Wall, while for most Palestinian Muslims, it houses the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam. No political or religious talk will bring the two ethnic groups together. This problem can be resolved only in one person. Now listen to this bishop's words of solution to Israel and Palestine conflict.
People of Israel, whether you are Jewish or a Palestinian, you will never find peace. You will never accomplish peace. You will never live peace ever until you acknowledge that the Son that was crucified on that hilltop called Calvary was Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Until the day that comes that both Jews and Muslims acknowledge Jesus was crucified on Calvary, there will be no peace in Israel, period. Because the one who gives peace is Jesus of Nazareth. No one else. No one else. The Jews denied his existence. The Muslims said he was not crucified. But God the Father says, my Son was crucified on Golgotha, on Calvary. Until the day the entire human race, the entire globe, whether you are a believer, whatever religion you seek and you believe in, whether you are an atheist, the only time you will find peace within when you acknowledge Jesus Christ in your life. That is the only way.